Welcome to Moving Forward with Uponor. I'm Daniel.
And I'm Marcus.
And we're here every Thursday to talk to you about all things Uponor, including plumbing, hydronics, and industry. If you guys like this video, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe. You can also post questions down below, and we'll try and answer those to the best of our ability. So we've talked about a lot of awesome things, right? We've talked about, how Uponor's got here, commercial. We've talked about solutions, piping, fittings, all that kind of stuff, even hangers and supports. And I'm pretty excited about today's video because we're talking about tools and cutting things.
Yeah, not only tools and cutting things, but tools and plumbing, mechanical, piping applications, especially with Uponor heat PEX and AquaPEX 2 type systems. So let's dig into it, Daniel. Let's talk about some tools, tips, and tricks, talking about, for commercial applications, cutting large diameter pipe, and dig into it.
All right, so the first thing we're going to talk about is the Milwaukee Expander tool offering, right? So essentially with Milwaukee, we've been partnering with Milwaukee since like 2009, and awesome partner. And back then what we kind of set out to do was say, hey, guys have been using these hand expanders forever. It's not the most productive thing in the world, right? It makes your arms look really good for those sleeveless beach days. But one of the things we said is, hey, we want something that's more productive. So we kind of worked together. We created these battery tools with the first M12 offering back in 2009, 2010-ish. And all the way today where we've got this M12 fuel tool, as well as two other tools that we're able to do anywhere from 1/2-inch pipe all the way up to 3-inch pipe.
That's right. So as you mentioned too, Milwaukee Tool's got the M12 fuel tool that does 1/2-inch up to 1-inch. Then we have the M18 platform that does 1/2-inch up to 1.5 inches. And then we have the Force Logic tool that does 2-inch up to 3-inch here. So both the Force Logic is on the M18 battery platform as well.
And again, like these are all obviously available through your different, commercial plumbing and HVAC wholesalers and distributors. And one of the other things we'll talk about with the tools, so we're not going to do any ProPEX connections today. We have other videos on those that we'll link below. If you want to see how to actually make a connection, it's obviously really simple. But we'll just hit on a couple things with general kind of misses, if you will, with the tools and some general maintenance things.
Yeah, so one of the important things too, it sounds pretty simple, but it's important. You want to make sure that you have the right expansion head on the right tool, and you want to make sure that you have the right tool to do the job and the right head to do the job for the right size. So if you're going to expand a 1-inch pipe, you want to make sure that you got a 1-inch expansion head on it, and you got the M18 or the M12 tool to do that expansion. So that's, sounds a little elementary, but we just want to make sure and emphasize that is important, that you have the right tool to do the job.
Right, and the other big thing, and that's really awesome with these tools, is the auto rotation feature. So back in the day, again, back to the hand tools, you had to manually rotate the head basically after each connection. And the reason for that is as the head expands, you could potentially get leak paths with the kind of separation you get between the teeth of the heads. And what was really important when we developed these tools with Milwaukee is that the head actually rotates by itself. So that's one thing that the user doesn't have to worry about. It's literally, as you're watching it expand the pipe, you're just kind of eyeballing it and making sure that it is in fact rotating. And then a big part of that from a maintenance side is just keeping the tools greased, the metal between the cone and the head. Obviously it's metal on metal, you want to make sure that that's being greased properly.
Yep, and each tool comes in a hard plastic case from Milwaukee Tool, and it comes with a little tube of the appropriate grease to apply to the expansion cone that can also be used with each expansion head. So that is important too, and that's provided every time you buy a tool through Milwaukee Tool. So. Right.
And last but not least with these tools, what's really cool is there's no calibration with them. So compared to like a copper press tool or even a PEX crimp tool, for example, those have to be calibrated after a certain number of cycles. So with these tools, it's literally making sure your batteries are charged and making sure that the expander heads are greased like we talked about. So that's about it. So now that we've talked about the tool offering, let's jump into cutting tools, okay? And so this is pretty cool. So we get a lot of questions on how do I cut pipe, and specifically, how do we cut big pipe? So everything we're talking about today is basically for 2-inch up to 3-inch pipe, and we'll kind of showcase basically what each tool, like the benefit of each. We got some cut samples, and then kind of talk through each one of those versus maybe some of the battery tools and versus the hand tools.
All right, right. So let's start talking about some of the hand tools. The first one being the swing cutter. It also referred to as the copper tube cutter. It's got, you know, the spinning type disc on it. One thing to note too is this is not that common to cut PEX pipe with. It can be done. Important note here is just make sure that this cutting blade is big enough to penetrate and cut the wall of the PEX pipe.
Right. So we actually sell this one specifically in our Uponor catalog, and it comes with the deeper wheel to be able to make sure it goes all the way through the pipe sidewall. Up to 3-inch pipe. The next hand tool we'll talk about is a Shears. So similar type thing, right? This goes up to 3-inch, and basically guillotine style, right? This is cutting the pipe, and the benefit of both of these is they're super clean cuts, right? There's no debris. They're very clean. You don't have to worry about any rework after the fact. It's just the fact that they're manual versus battery powered.
Yeah, that's great, Daniel. So another question we get, you know, if contractors want to use a battery operated tool or a shear type cutter, you know, the answer is yes, there's a tool for that.
There is a tool for that.
There's a tool. You know, one being here is the shear cutter and the M12 platform from Milwaukee Tool. Cuts up to the 2-inch size PEX pipe. You know, so, you know, you can see the different options. We have a shear cutter and battery operated shear cutter up to 2-inch. We got the swing cutter that can do up to 3-inch. We got the hand tool, ratchet type cutter for up to 3-inch. You know, but even still talking larger pipe, you know, the common question that we get is, you know, can we use a portaband or a bandsaw? Right. Knowing, and that's a common tool on with a lot of plumbing and mechanical contractors that's on the job site, whether it's to cut all thread, strut, you know, can they use it on PEX pipe as well? Right.
So you'll see that we actually did do some cuts with a portaband or a deep cut bandsaw. And like Marcus said, these are commonly on job sites. So one of the things to stress with this is that yes, in fact, you can cut with a bandsaw. The problem with bandsaw, number one, is keeping a straight cut. So obviously you want to be able to keep a straight cut. Bandsaws tend to walk a little bit, and obviously depending upon the person doing the cutting, that could affect it as well. The other part of that is debris. So bandsaws create a lot of debris when it comes to cutting PEX. So obviously if you're going to be cutting PEX with a bandsaw, just know that you're going to have a lot more, you know, basically kind of deburring or removal of this extra material versus you would if you're using one of the shears that we kind of talked about.
That's important.
And then last but not least would be the miter saw. So miter saw is also fairly common, probably more so in a shop environment, but also works really well, right? And we're, you know, nothing crazy here. We're talking about standard, you know, higher tooth count blade, maybe like a trim blade, standard high RPM miter saw. And again, you know, really clean, but you also have more debris. So there's going to be more debris within the pipe, so making sure that obviously if you're making sub-assemblies or prefabricating things, that you're going to want to clean that stuff out of there so it's not in the system when at startup.
That's important.
All right, and while we're still talking about cutting tools, one of the other big questions we get is how do you cut PEX-a pipe support? So there's kind of really two ways to do it. Number one would be with the shears, right? So obviously you can use a metal shears or a snips. One of the problems with that, though, you'll find is it tends to flatten out the pipe support as you kind of cut across. One of the better ways we found is to actually use the PEX-a pipe support and a scrap piece of pipe and then cut through both of those. And what it does is it actually just kind of keeps this nice and stiff down here, provides a nice kind of form, I guess you could say, as you're cutting through it with the bandsaw. And then literally once you're done, it's a matter of taking and snipping your corners here at a 45 and then kind of filing off any burrs you might have on this.
Yeah, and that'll be important too. You know, coming from the factory, those corners are cut just because we want to make sure, you know, for safety that no one catches a hand on it, cut, scratches and all that. So that'll be important as well that you do clean up that cut from the bandsaw. And we've seen good success, and I've seen pictures of contractors that use that pipe, as you mentioned, snapping that PEX-a pipe support on it and making that cut really gives it a good rigidity and support to make that cut and keep it looking professional.
Right. So last but not least, let's talk about connection integrity and distance between fittings. So obviously, if you guys check out our ProPEX, how to make a ProPEX connection video, you'll kind of see the gist of how the ProPEX connection is made. But from a high level, right, we talked about the fact that the fitting cannot be dry fit, right? So you have to physically expand the pipe in the ring. And what that means is the head of the expander actually has to go inside of the pipe. And because of that, you have to make sure that if you have another fitting on the other end, that your head's not getting too close where it's going to potentially open and break inside of that other fitting. So we want to make sure, that's why we have specific distances of minimum pipe lengths to make sure that you're not going to damage that other fitting when you're doing an expansion.
Yeah, that's right. So we could find that in our plumbing design manual and any installation handbook that we have from Uponor about what that minimal length is between each fitting. It changes by size, going from 1/2 inch up to 3 inch. But as you had mentioned too, we just want to make sure for that next pipe expansion that you're not reaching in far enough with that expansion head and clipping the end of this pipe, causing any type of stress concerns to it. So we just want to make sure that you're clear of the fitting nearby and have full insertion of the next PEX fitting.
Right. All right, so a lot of information in this episode, right? We talked through the Milwaukee Tool offering. You guys can check out those videos down below. We'll link them for making PEX connections. We've talked about the different cutting methods, right? If there's something out there you guys are using that you think works really well, send that to us. If you got any questions, make sure you submit those. And thanks again for watching.